Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The banana peel was still on the counter. I know that sounds ridiculous as a way to start a story about betrayal, but that peel told me everything I needed to know. Olivia always ate her bananas at 6:45 a.m. sharp with almond butter every weekday morning for the last 9 years. The peel always ended up in the compost bin, neatly folded. Not this time. This time, it was on the granite, wet, mushy, lazy, like someone had taken a bite out of our marriage and just tossed the rest aside. I stared at it while she packed her weekend bag in the hallway. Humming. God, she was humming. A tune I didn't recognize. "Where are you headed again?" I asked. My voice cracked on headed, like I was 13 again, and asking a girl to prom. She didn't even look up. Nowhere fancy, just some fresh air with people who make me laugh. I smiled like an idiot. Like a girl's weekend. She zipped the bag and turned toward me. "Dennis, if I wanted to spend time with girlfriends, I wouldn't have lied," she said, that just like that, and walked past me like we were strangers in a hotel lobby. I watched her toss the bag into the back of a black SUV that didn't belong to anyone I knew. Some guy I'd never seen before was behind the wheel, wearing sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. He waved at her. She giggled. I counted how many seconds passed before she looked back at me. 0. That night, I made dinner for one and sat with my laptop. I opened a dozen tabs about how to save your marriage. Most of them suggested travel time together, breaking routine, so I planned a trip. I booked a little cabin in the woods, the kind we used to dream about when we couldn't afford anything more than a pizza and a walk. I even wrote a little note. "I miss you. Let's try one more time." I was waiting by the door when she came back the next evening. She smelled like someone else's cologne and looked exhausted in that happy way people do after a good laugh. I handed her the printed itinerary. She read it slowly, then tossed it back like junk mail. And then she said it. "I'd rather go with a real man, not a parody." My ears burned, my throat closed, my knees felt like they forgot how to stand. I watched her disappear into the bathroom, still humming that tune. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the banana peel she hadn't cleaned up and realized it wasn't just her who'd given up. It was me. At 7:14 the next morning, I walked into the county clerk's office and filed for divorce. And somehow, that wasn't even the most shocking part of the week. I didn't hear from her for 2 full days after I filed the papers. Not a text, not a call, just silence. You'd think after 9 years of marriage, a person would at least send a Y or even a sarcastic emoji. But nope. She was living her best life somewhere else, probably laughing at how easy it all was. I stayed at a cheap motel across town, the kind with vending machines that only accept exact change and carpets that never stopped smelling like mildew. It matched my mood. I spent the first night rewriting the text I never sent. "Why did you stop choosing me?" Then I deleted it again and again until my fingers got tired. On the third day, I finally heard from her. Not through a phone call, not through a lawyer, but through a mutual friend, Jason. He texted me. "Didn't think she'd bring him to Macy's anniversary party. You okay, man?" I stared at the message for a long time. "Bring who?" Jason sent a photo. There she was, Olivia, standing under golden balloons with her hand wrapped tightly around a man's arm. Not just any man. It was Aaron Kessler, her old friend from her last job. The one she swore had a girlfriend. The one who always just happened to be funny. The one she said I was too sensitive about. She'd said I was paranoid. She said I was insecure. She said he wasn't even her type. Turns out I was all of those things. And right. I don't remember standing up. I just remember the sudden urge to see it with my own eyes. I drove to Macy's house like a zombie. No plan in mind, just a gut full of boiling confusion and this sick need to prove to myself that it was real, that I wasn't just the crazy husband people whispered about. The party was already in full swing when I arrived. Lights strung across the backyard, music thumping softly under the sound of too much laughter. I spotted her instantly. She was dancing with him, slow, close, like they'd been doing it for years. Nobody noticed me standing there by the fence, not even her. I watched for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 15. Tongue got blurry. Then she leaned in and kissed him right there in front of everyone. And you know what hit me hardest? No one gasped. No one acted surprised. They all just smiled like they'd seen it before, like I was the only one who hadn't. That night, I didn't sleep again, but not because I was sad. This time, it was because something in me was waking up. A voice I hadn't heard in years. A voice that said, "She never paused to look back at you, so why are you still standing still?" And that voice, it had a plan. I didn't go back to the motel that night. I couldn't sit on that creaky bed and pretend sleep was an option, after watching my wife dance with another man like I never existed. So, I drove to the old condo we used to rent back when we were broke and in love. Parked across the street, just sat there staring at the flickering porch light someone else had probably installed by now. That tiny place once held our dreams. Now it held nothing but ghosts. The next morning, I forced myself back home. She was gone, of course, her overnight bag missing again, bathroom spotless, like she didn't even live there anymore. But something strange happened when I opened her laptop. I wasn't trying to snoop. I swear I wasn't. I just needed to check our joint bank account and cancel the cabin reservation. I typed in the bank's URL out of habit, and that's when it autofilled, but not with my email. It was hers, and it wasn't the bank's site. It was Hollowback Match, some sleazy dating site for married people looking for discreet fun. My hand froze on the trackpad. The profile was still logged in. No password required. She hadn't even cared enough to cover her tracks. The username, still craving truth. I clicked, and there it was. Her profile photo, dimly lit but unmistakably her, with her hair draped over one shoulder like she was starring in a shampoo ad. Her bio read like a punch to the ribs. Trapped in a lifeless marriage. I'm done pretending, looking for connection, laughter, and a man who knows how to take the lead. Below that were messages, dozens, maybe more. Some from guys I didn't recognize. Others were worse. There was one from Aaron, 3 weeks before our anniversary. Booked the hotel, same place as last year. Hope your parody of a husband is still clueless. I nearly vomited. Last year she'd been cheating on me before I suggested the trip. That little smirk she gave when I handed her the brochure wasn't shock. It was pity. I don't remember closing the laptop. I only remember pacing the kitchen for hours, gripping the edge of the counter so hard I thought I'd crack it in half. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was numb, hollow, like someone had scooped out everything that made me a person and left behind a mannequin in a flannel shirt. Then came the real kicker. As I tried to shut down the page, I noticed a message in her sent folder. She'd written to Aaron 2 nights ago, after I filed for divorce. He thinks he's finally growing his spine. It's cute. Honestly, I'll let him have his moment. That broke me. She wasn't sad. She wasn't even angry. She was amused. I sat on the floor and cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just slow, exhausted. Like something in me had finally given up. I didn't cry because she cheated. I cried because I realized she never really stopped, and maybe never planned to. But the part of me she thought was gone, the part she mocked, wasn't dead. It had just been waiting for me to stop begging for scraps and start preparing the feast. I didn't touch her laptop again. I didn't need to. The image of that profile was burned into my brain. Her words, her smirk, that tone of mockery in every message like she was documenting my collapse for her entertainment. I thought about confronting her, thought about yelling, demanding, but that's exactly what she'd expect me to do. Spiral, cry, beg. The parody playing out his final act. Instead, I made a choice. I called in sick, took Friday off, spent the morning sitting in my car 3 streets away from her office. She always parked near the corner, under the crooked elm tree with the broken branch. I knew her schedule better than she did. She always left for her extended lunch at 12:15 like clockwork. And sure enough, 12:14, there she was, sunglasses on, coat already half off, slipping into that same black SUV. Aaron was driving. His license plate was smug, W1 sum. I followed at a distance. They weren't careful. She didn't hide. They laughed at a red light, heads thrown back in perfect sync. I didn't feel anger, not like before. I felt like I was watching strangers. They pulled into a boutique hotel downtown. Not the discreet kind either, the kind with valet and glass walls. She didn't even look around before kissing him outside the lobby. Bold, shameless. It hit me then. She didn't believe I had it in me to do anything about it. I wasn't a threat. I was background noise. That realization lit something in me I hadn't felt in years. Not rage, not revenge, something deeper. Clarity. I didn't confront them. I drove home and made a list. Not the petty kind. Not burn her clothes or slash his tires. No, I made a list of everything with my name on it. The mortgage, the car, the insurance, the savings. She hadn't noticed it yet, but her name was never added to most of it. She always trusted me to handle the paperwork. That line had once made me proud. Now it felt like the one crack in her perfect plan. I moved quietly. I contacted the bank. I froze joint transactions. I had the locks changed while she was still at her secret hotel. I boxed her things with more care than she ever gave my heart. I labeled them. I folded her sweaters. I even included the framed photo of her dad she always kept on her dresser. I wanted her to know this wasn't revenge. This was release. The final touch. I took a photo of the suitcase at the door and texted it to her with a single message. You said you'd rather go on a trip with a real man. I packed for you. Have a great journey. She didn't reply. Not that day. But her silence. That was the loudest confession of all. When Olivia finally came home 3 days later, the house greeted her with something unfamiliar. Silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind that wraps around you like a blanket. No, this was the kind that feels like someone already left and took the warmth with them. I wasn't there. Her favorite mug wasn't there. Even the framed photo from our wedding that used to sit on the hallway table was gone. All that remained were boxes by the front door, labeled clearly, packed neatly, as if someone had been preparing for this long before she realized. She stood there for a while. I know this because I watched from my car across the street. She didn't see me, not with how hard she was frozen in place. Like the reality hadn't caught up until that exact moment. Like she thought this version of Dennis, the doormat, the sad clown, would never actually follow through. I'd left her a letter, just one page. No yelling, no guilt, just truth. You said you'd rather travel with a real man. I believed you. I just never imagined the journey would start with me walking away. I don't know if she cried. She didn't fall to her knees or scream into the sky like they do in movies. She just carried the boxes inside one by one, slower than she ever moved. Like every step was heavier than the last. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Later that night, she called 10 times. I didn't answer. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just didn't have anything left to say. Her 11th call came with a voicemail. I sat in that dingy motel room and listened to it on speaker, staring at the ceiling while her voice cracked halfway through. Dennis, I didn't think you'd actually do this. I don't even know who you are right now. Can we please talk? Talk. Now she wanted to talk. The next day, she texted, I made a mistake. A mistake? No, Olivia. A mistake is forgetting your umbrella. What she did was planned, repeated, and cruel. What she did was sabotage dressed up as laughter. She didn't trip and fall into another man's arms. She bought a ticket and took the long, scenic route. The thing is, I wasn't interested in vengeance. I didn't want to make her pay. I wanted peace, just peace. But Olivia wasn't the type to let go without noise. She showed up at my brother's house that evening while I was helping him fix a leaking pipe. I heard her yelling before I saw her, telling him to send me out, that she deserved a conversation. He didn't open the door, just called back. He doesn't owe you anything anymore. That must have stung. She sat in her car for nearly an hour before driving away. And me? I just kept tightening that pipe valve, hands shaking, eyes stinging. Not from the effort, but from finally realizing the weight of being free. Not free from her, free from trying, free from proving I was enough for someone who never saw me to begin with. But the story doesn't end here, because Olivia wasn't done. And the next thing she did made everything before it looked like a rehearsal. It was exactly 4 days after she saw the empty house when Olivia tried a new angle. I thought the silence would last longer, that she'd disappear into Aaron's arms and never look back. But apparently, the cold shoulder only worked on me because on day 4, I came back to the motel to find an envelope shoved under the door. No name on it, just smudged ink and a faint perfume that I hadn't smelled in months. Hers. Inside was a card, one of those cheap ones with a watercolor sunset and words like, "Healing takes time." But what she wrote inside wasn't an apology. It was a sales pitch dressed up as regret. "Dennis, I know you're hurting, and maybe I pushed too far. But you walking away like this, it's not you. You're not a quitter. I don't think you actually want this divorce. I think you're scared. I'm willing to forgive you if you're ready to act like the man I fell for. Please don't let something small destroy everything we've built." Something small. I read that line 3 times. Then I laughed out loud. Alone in that worn-down motel room with a broken ceiling fan and stained curtains. She called years of betrayal, of deception, of manipulation, something small. And then it hit me. She didn't regret what she'd done. She regretted losing control. She thought I'd cave the moment she offered the illusion of grace, that I'd be so grateful she hadn't run straight to the courthouse herself, that I'd crawl back like a kicked dog, thrilled to be let in from the rain. That letter wasn't an apology. It was a dare. And I wasn't playing anymore. I didn't respond. I boxed the card with the rest of the memories I didn't know what to do with. Our wedding invitation, the anniversary journal we stopped writing in after year 3, the ultrasound picture from the pregnancy that never made it past 10 weeks. I kept everything, not because I wanted to cling to it, but because I needed to remember the whole story, not just the ending. The next morning, she showed up in person. She waited outside my work. No warning, no shame. Just standing there with her arms crossed like she was the one who had been wronged. "I've been trying to be civil," she said, her voice low and rehearsed. "But you're making this harder than it has to be." I stared at her for once. I didn't fold. I didn't stammer. I just asked, "Do you even know what you're sorry for?" She blinked. "For pushing you away." I shook my head. "No, you're sorry you lost control. That's not the same thing." The mask cracked for a second. Not enough to crumble, just enough to see the contempt slip through. "I didn't come here to be insulted," she snapped. "Then maybe don't show up where you're not invited," I replied. That was it. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She just turned and walked away. But her pride didn't let her leave quietly. Over her shoulder, she muttered, "You'll come back. You always do." But this time, I didn't even flinch. Because that part of me she counted on, the part that stayed, that forgave, that bent until it broke, it was gone. And I wasn't done yet. The next week passed like fog. Quiet on the outside, loud in my head. I kept waiting for the next hit. Olivia was many things, but passive wasn't one of them. I knew she wouldn't walk away with a shrug. Not when she'd spent years controlling every room she walked into, every conversation, every version of reality that suited her. I thought maybe she'd show up at my job again. Maybe she'd post some performative nonsense online. Instead, she did something I didn't expect. She filed a countersuit, a divorce response that flipped everything around. Her lawyer sent over a claim that I had emotionally abandoned her, intentionally withheld affection, and my personal favorite, engaged in financial control. I sat there in the lawyer's office reading it, my ears ringing. My attorney, a soft-spoken guy named Brennan, who looked more like a math teacher than a shark, just sighed and rubbed his forehead. "She's not trying to win," he said flatly. "She's trying to exhaust you. This is a strategy. Make you look like the abuser so she gets sympathy and leverage." I laughed. I actually laughed after everything she did. I was the abuser now. The man who cried himself to sleep next to her while she sent hard emojis to another man. The guy who packed her things with care and left her coffee waiting in the kitchen even after she called him a joke. I asked Brennan what we could do. He said 2 words: stay silent. He told me not to react emotionally, not to contact her directly, and absolutely not to post anything publicly. She was waiting for that. She needed a meltdown, a text she could wave around, a voicemail with anger in it, something to feed the narrative that I was losing it. And the sickest part, I almost gave it to her. I almost drove to her apartment and asked her why she needed to burn everything on her way out. But I didn't. I kept quiet until one night, the story cracked on its own. I got a message from an unknown number. No text, just a video file. I hesitated before opening it. Thought maybe it was a prank or a virus or something worse, but curiosity beat caution. The video opened with Aaron. Yes, him, sitting shirtless in what looked like Olivia's apartment. Clearly mid-rant. He was holding a beer, pacing, muttering. "She's insane, man," he said. "Told me she was single, then admits she's still married, then says she's only divorcing him if I step up. What does that even mean?" He laughed bitterly, chugged the rest of his drink, and dropped onto her couch. I swear, if I knew she came with this much baggage, I'd have ghosted months ago. I watched it 3 times. Then I scrolled up to see the number again. A second message popped in. "You don't know me, but you deserve to see this." She did the same thing to my friend 3 years ago. Used him, flipped it, drained him. Don't fall for it again. No name, no follow-up. I didn't need one. The image of her lawyer painting me as the manipulator while she dangled herself like bait for the next poor idiot made something settle in me. Not rage, not heartbreak, clarity. I handed the video to Brennan. He didn't even blink. "We're done playing defense," he said. "Let's end this." And just like that, Olivia lost control of the script. The final hearing was quieter than I imagined it would be. No dramatic objections, no screaming breakdowns, no one running out of the courtroom in tears. Just papers, signatures, and a judge who barely looked up from his glasses when he said, "Divorce granted." That was it. 9 years over in under 15 minutes. I remember walking out into the parking lot, blinking like I just stepped into sunlight after years in a dark room. Olivia didn't say a word. She didn't look at me either. She had on her usual performance mask, heels too high, hair too perfect, lips too red, but her hands were shaking when she picked up her purse. I saw it, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the urge to help her calm down. I just walked past her and didn't look back. What followed wasn't some triumphant movie montage. It was slow, awkward, and real. I moved into a tiny studio downtown with more creaks than square footage. I burned my eggs for the first 3 breakfasts. I forgot how to do laundry properly and ruined my favorite hoodie. But there was something beautiful in the mess because it was mine. I started therapy. Yummy. The guy she called a parody. Turns out I wasn't broken. I was just lost in someone else's story for too long. I met new people, reconnected with old friends I had pushed away during the slow unraveling of my marriage. People who remembered the dentist from before I started whispering in my own house. And one of those people, a friend of a friend named Tessa, invited me to a book club. I almost didn't go, but something told me to show up. And I'm glad I did because she listened. Really listened. Not to fix, not to correct, just to understand. And one night, sitting under string lights on her porch, I told her everything. Not the cleaned up version, the truth. And she didn't flinch. She just said, "I'm glad you finally got out." It hit me then. Freedom doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes in quiet evenings, in shared laughter, in being seen by someone who doesn't want to change you. I don't know where this path leads yet, but for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid of the unknown. I'm actually looking forward to it. So, if you're out there stuck in something that makes you smaller, that makes you beg for crumbs of love, hear me when I say leaving might be the bravest, kindest thing you ever do for yourself. Because healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just quietly begins. Thank you for sticking with this story. You're watching Reddit Confessions, and now I want to hear from you. Which moment in this story shocked you the most? And have you ever had a banana peel moment in your own life that told you everything? Drop your confessions in the comments. Subscribe for more original stories.